Good morning. Welcome to St. Clement's in Ewell. I'm Father Alexander, and welcome to our 313th step in our walking tour through the Bible. And we're going to be looking at the very last book of the Old Testament, which is the Prophet Malachi. We don't really know who Malachi was. Malachi just means my messenger, so we don't even know his name. But he's got two beefs, or beeves. A lot of prophets have sort of something they go on about, and the two principal faults that he levels, or the voice of God through Malachi levels at the people of Israel, are as follows. First of all, liturgical abuse, and secondly, lax moral theology. And I'm going to look at both of those today. I'm using sort of modern terms. Malachi, in his first chapter, moans about, on behalf of God, that the people of Israel are coming to the temple and bringing animals that are treif, not proper animals that should be sacrificed to God, not the best animals in the flock, but lame, blind, crippled animals, things like that, the sort of animals you'd want to throw away. In other words, the sort of animals that don't really involve much sacrifice when you give them up and you give them to God. And then you also say, you profane the table of the Lord. Because how tiresome it all is, you say. And you sniff disdainfully at me, says the Lord God of hosts. You bring a stolen, lame, or diseased animal. You bring that as an offering. Am I to accept this from your hand, says the Lord? Cursed be the rogue who owns a male that he has vowed to offer from his flock, and instead sacrifice a blemished animal to me. For I am a great king, says the Lord God of hosts, and my name is feared throughout the nations. And now, priests, this is a warning to you, he goes on. If you do not listen, if you do not find it in your heart to glorify my name, says the Lord God of hosts, I will send the curse on you and curse your very blessing. Indeed, I've already cursed it, since there's not a single one of you who takes this to heart. Now watch how I'm going to paralyze your arm and throw dung in your face. That doesn't sound very nice, does it? The dung from your very solemnities, and sweep you away with it. Then you shall learn that it is I who have given you this warning. So the priests are not doing their job. Standards have fallen in the temple. People are sniffing and saying, the liturgy, it's not important. Now, does this sound familiar to you? Yes, well, it should do. So many people nowadays say, oh, the liturgy is not really important. The church has got better things to do than to celebrate the Mass with all its heart and all its soul, and to do it in the best possible way. I think the prophet Malachi is calling to mind that the people of Israel are only as good as their temple in Jerusalem, and the temple in Jerusalem is only as good as the sacrifices offered in it, and the sacrifices offered in it must be done correctly and must be done to the best of the ability of the priests and the people taking part. It's really very simple. Ask yourself, if you're a parish priest, how long do you spend preparing the liturgy? Or let's say, do you spend a quarter of an hour a week preparing the liturgy? Okay, you write a sermon. Maybe that takes, I don't know, half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour. Do you look at the readings? Do you look at the music? Do you make sure everything is exactly as it should be? Or is it rather that you spend more time doing things like the accounts, or doing things like phoning the plumber, or doing things like fixing the roof and chasing around and so on and so forth? Is the liturgy the summit of your daily life? When I was ordained, or maybe it was somebody else's ordination, the prelate who was ordaining the priest said, may the celebration of the Mass be the summit of your day every day from now on, and not just some tiresome duty that you have to undertake. And I think, well, I've been to lots of ordinations, but that's one of the very few things that I can remember from an ordination. May it be the summit of your day, not just a tiresome chore. Let it not be routine, and above all, avoid shortcuts. So, for example, when you say Mass, do we really have to have Eucharistic prayer too every day? When, of course, there is an opportunity to have 1 to 4, and of course there are others, I believe, 1 to 4 in rotation. Again, do we have to have the Mass of Sunday every day when we could celebrate the optional memorial? Or we could celebrate the votive Mass in keeping with whatever is appropriate. So, for example, now we're in October, it's a good time to celebrate the Mass for the evangelization of peoples and so on. The liturgy is rich. Let us not let it become impoverished. And I think this is one of the very major problems of the church today, in that we have allowed our liturgy to be impoverished. Very rarely do people go away from church saying that was a beautiful liturgy. Rather, they come out saying, oh, well, we've been to Mass. It was the same as ever. Well, now let's go off and do something else. Now, the next thing that he's got to say is that he is not happy with the way the Jewish people pass off immorality as something that can be dismissed with a shrug of the shoulders. And here it goes. This is in the second chapter. Verse 10, have we not all one Father? Did not one God create us? This is what the people are saying. Why then do we break faith with one another, profaning the covenant of our ancestors? Judah has broken faith. A detestable thing has been done in Israel and in Jerusalem. Yes, Judah has profaned the sanctuary that the Lord loves. He has married the daughter of an alien God. In other words, Judah has declined from God. Judah has abandoned God. The man who does this, whoever may be, God will cut him off from the tents of Jacob. He'll be excommunicated. And here is something else you do. You cover the altar of Yahweh, of the Lord, with tears, with weeping and wailing, because he now refuses to consider the offering or accept it from your hands. And you ask, why? It is because the Lord stands as witness between you and the wife of your youth, the covenant. Now, in other words, what you've done is and then it says, verse 17, you weary the Lord with your talk. You ask, how do we weary him? When you say any evildoer is good as far as the Lord is concerned. Indeed, he likes them best. Or when you say, where is the God of justice now? In other words, you've watered down the law of God. You've said, 10 commandments, Book of Deuteronomy, forget about it. All the laws and all the regulations of the covenant, God doesn't care about that. You're saying an evildoer is good as far as the law is concerned, as God is concerned. Indeed, he likes them best. Where is the God of justice now? In other words, you have forgotten that God is justice. You have forgotten that God is moral goodness. You've said God doesn't really mind if we, for example, introduce legislation for the killing of old people who've become a nuisance and shepherd them along the road to death, giving them a little helping hand. Oh, God doesn't mind that. Oh, God doesn't really mind anything. God does not mind adultery. God does not mind institutionalized adultery and second marriages. God does not mind fornication. God does not mind theft. God does not mind tax avoidance and all those other things. Your slapdash nature with the liturgy is a sign of your slapdash application of the law of God, of the justice of God. God's justice is now old hat. So what is God going to do? He's going to send somebody along and he's going to tell you what's what. He's going to tell you, he's going to send along a prophet, one who's going to come into the temple and lay down the law. Now, this person, it's the day of the Lord again, it's sort of apocalyptic. Look, this is God's response. This is verse 3, chapter 1. I'm going to send my messenger to prepare a way before me. So God is going to come, but before, he'll send the messenger saying, God's coming, watch out. And the Lord you are seeking will suddenly enter his temple. And this is not going to be good, because it's going to give you a nasty shock. And the angel of the covenant, whom you are longing for, yes, he is coming, says the Lord of God of hosts. Who will be able to resist the day of his coming? Who will remain standing when he appears? For he's like a refiner's fire and a fuller's alkali. He'll take his seat as refiner and purifier. He will purify the sons of Levi, the temple workers, and refine them like gold and silver, and they will make their offering to the Lord as it should be made. So God is coming to renew the temple worship, and God is going to send his messenger before him. Then you go over the page from Malachi, and you get to the first chapter, the third chapter of Matthew, actually, and lo and behold, that prophecy is fulfilled. John the Baptist turns up, the messenger of God, and then Jesus Christ comes along, God himself, and he is the one who restores the temple worship, not in the temple, but on another hill, the hill of Calvary, where he fulfills the temple worship. He replaces the sacrifice of animals, blemished animals, by offering the perfect lamb. He offers to God, God himself. And therefore, we have now come to the threshold of the New Testament, and we have completed the Old Testament. I hope it wasn't a slog. I didn't find it a slog. I found it extremely rewarding going through all these books of the Old Testament. I hope you did too. And join me next time in the New Testament, the Gospel according to St. Matthew. All the very best. Have a great day.